Hello and welcome to Mystery Us. I'm Tony Pratt, your host for Mystery Us. And on today's edition of the program, we have a guest who is an author of 14 books, an investigative mythologist, seeker, and teacher, William Henry. How you doing, William?
Great, Tony. Thanks.
Welcome to Mystery Us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
William, you had been, I should say welcome back to Mystery Us, because we had done a previous show. And at the end of that program, we were talking about the Holy Grail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in your book, The Illuminator, about Mary Magdalene, you refer to a possible candidate for the Holy Grail called the Alabaster box, or Alabastron, which is a special kind of container. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, when I'm talking about Mary Magdalene, what my research reveals is she was a tremendously, not only a tremendously inspired person, but a tremendously knowledgeable person about a lot of different areas. Remember, she's Jesus' chief apostle. Okay, so she's not, some kind of run-of-the-mill prostitute like, some people want you to believe, like the Catholic Church. Not a shot at, that's not a shot at the church. That's just what they think.
Right.
That's not happening. When you look into the scholarly research about Mary Magdalene, they say that she was part of a lineage of priestesses that go back into ancient Egypt, who had incredible knowledge about perfuming. She was a perfumer. She had knowledge about ancient spirituality. And ultimately, it's possible, and a lot of different Magdalene scholars will say this, that she was actually a priestess of Isis from Egypt. And when you follow that line of thinking, it's like, wait a minute, all of a sudden Isis has responsibility for this device we've talked about before called the Osiris device, the ladder or stairway to heaven, which was also called the tower. And in fact, when you're talking about Mary Magdalene, her name, Mary, means beloved. Magdala, or Magdalene, means the tower. So her name means the beloved tower. And you have to wonder, if she is a priestess of Isis, did Mary Magdalene in fact know the secrets of the ancient Egyptian tower, the ladder or stairway to heaven, which was an instrument of some kind that was also portrayed as a canister that held the soul of the Savior, the Egyptian Savior, Osiris. I mean, you're talking about an extraordinary technology now. You're talking about Mary Magdalene conceivably having knowledge about how to contain a soul or preserve a soul in an instrument or device called the alabastron. And I mean, that was the contemporary terminology. In Egypt, it's called the tower or the Osiris device. Mary Magdalene's time, it's called the alabastron. And you just have to wonder, what are we talking about here? Is it possible that she did in fact possess this extraordinarily advanced knowledge that she probably learned in Egypt, and that is the true secret of the Holy Grail?
And this alabastron was a cup-shaped or crucible-shaped container that was used for chemicals when they were heated to very extreme temperatures?
We're talking about alchemy here. When you're talking about containers that have this capability, we're talking about alchemy. And that, to me, is one of the key parts of the Jesus and Mary Magdalene story, because remember, Mary Magdalene appears in Jesus' life in Capernaum when he's having these debates with the elders about manna. They're talking about him as the Messiah, and the elders, the Jewish elders, are saying, look, if you're Moses or Elijah return, then one of your responsibilities is to make the manna. Well, the manna that we're talking about in the Egyptian tradition was this, they called it the white powder gold. It had all these incredible magical properties. We're told that they could take some of this manna substance and sprinkle it on, say, a 50-ton block of red granite, and it would levitate. It would float.
Wow. And
they use that as an explanation for how they move the massive 50, 100, 250-ton blocks that you find inside the Great Pyramid. We can't move those with a crane today.
So it's like anti-gravity powder?
It's anti-gravity powder,
I need that for my magic act.
Exactly. And the Egyptian pharaohs talked about ingesting this substance. They drank it, and it fed their light bodies. They believed it was like an immortality powder. And so that's what they called white bread, the manna.
Right.
And so when the Jewish elders are saying to Jesus, hey, if you think you're Moses, or like Moses, who was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and who also manufactured this powder, then it's time for you to bring it on. And so here comes Mary Magdalene into the story at that right moment, right there, when all of a sudden they're telling him to produce this alchemical substance. And that's when they link up. That's when they become partners. And I think the reason is because he knew that Mary Magdalene had this tremendous insight and training that she received in Egypt, and they were right there to work together to make their project happen.
It's amazing how you see the biblical movies and everyone's wearing sandals and living in dirt. There's no,
it's so
there's
pathetic.
no factories or technology or anything, and all that stuff was around then. I mean, we know that.
It's pathetic to me.
Just,
they treat Jesus and Mary Magdalene and Moses like cartoon characters, you know, like felt board characters in Sunday school. You know, come on. When was the last time you saw a depiction of Jesus and Mary Magdalene in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem that Herod rebuilt with a 10-story tower out front?
Right.
They never, ever show stuff like that. Instead, they've got them as these, they show Jesus usually as this sort of hayseed hick who acts stoned or something because he's always blissed out.
Loves everybody.
Oh, I love everybody, and I'm blissed out. And I'm always looking at you like, you know, I'm looking through you or something.
He's nonviolent.
He's nonviolent, and, you know, come on. Show him in a temple. Show him doing some research. Show him with, you know, people that are of extreme intelligence and capability, and you're going to get my attention because that's who these people were.
If you look at the lost books, I mean, Jesus definitely had a temper, or he, you know, when people attacked him, you know, bad things happened to him, just like when they attacked the prophets in the Old Testament.
Right.
You know, God or just their very beingness, something would, the angels would protect them, or different things like that. Now, in the alabaster box, and then this was the box that was procured by Mary Magdalene, according to one of the lost books, the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Now, in that version, the alabaster box supposedly contains the foreskin of Jesus.
Oh, really?
That when he was circumcised on the 8th day by a Hebrew woman that was acting as the mole.
A little bit of DNA evidence going on there,
I guess. But, and also in the story, it said that Mary was fed by the hands of angels because she was raised in the temple, and there were angels out there, and people were watching them give her manna, and she was eating.
Incredible. So when you're talking about the angels, you're not talking about the Hallmark card angels. You're talking about immaterial beings, ephemeral beings that can even take material form. I mean, there's lots of examples of where these beings are, on one hand, they're beings of light, then on the other, they're sitting down, they're eating. Like as the angels that appeared to Abraham in the Old Testament is a classic example of beings that are identified as angels, but Abraham fed them human food, so they probably came from another realm and then have the ability or capability of materializing in this realm. So maybe that's what you're talking about when the angels are feeding Mary Magdalene.
Right, and somehow these angels are like intermediate beings, or they're like a higher self. They're somehow connected to us. And they, you know, they serve a very important function of, you know, they're messengers, of course, but also they affect nature and different things.
Well, to me, the rubber chicken just came out of the ceiling when you said the word higher self, because from the Gnostic perspective, I mean, that's what they taught, that this is a world of illusion. That our pure self, our real self, remains back in the source, and a part of us is projected into this realm, sort of like a puppet on a string, and comes into this realm to experience and to learn the life lessons. But ultimately, what we all want to learn is how to reconnect with that higher self. And there's great stories about that the Gnostics shared with one another, and people that connected with that way. And to me, I mean, the person that I think, this is a little bit off the topic, but it's related, but a person that it is claimed has connected with his higher guardian angel or is fully tapped in and connected with that self is Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. He was supposed to have learned all this incredible ancient magic, some of it coming from Aleister Crowley, that enabled him to connect with his higher guardian angel, as they call it or term it, or his higher self, that then bestowed upon him this incredible manic genius that unleashed all this incredible music on the world and changed the world.
He was definitely tuning in to something.
Yeah.
From somewhere, a higher level of guitar playing, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, he was on the Olympics.
I saw that. Whole lot of love in China and Beijing. It's like, here, take that.